1530 Shoreline Drive. Any corrections, questions, comments? 969 Isolita Avenue.
Isleta.
Isleta, excuse me. 612 Surfview Drive. 1308 Santa Teresita Drive. 825 Rubble Lane. Item 6, 1228 Manitou Lane. Item number 7, 1531 San Miguel Avenue. Item 8, 1215 East Coda Street. And no further comment. Chair will call for a vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Consent calendar for March 21st, 2016. Mr. Ing.
Actually, we did have a consent meeting on March 14th.
Oh, and none on, excuse me, I'm sorry.
So I'll read
March 14th, please.
those minutes. Item A, 223 West Islay Street. This project received project design approval with the NPO findings and final approval with a comment as noted. Item B, 20 Camino Verde. This project received approval of the review after final with condition and comments. Item C, 1568 Las Canoas Road. This project was continued indefinitely to consent review. Item D, 251 La Marina Drive. This project received final approval as submitted. Item E, 1530 Shoreline Drive. This project received final approval with the condition and comments as noted. Items A through E were reviewed by Chair Sweeney and Board Member Pierce.
Is there a motion for approval?
I'll make that motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Is there any questions, comments? Hearing none, Chair will call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Let's go to the 21st this morning.
Okay. Monday, March 21st consent minutes are as follows. Item A, 1568 Las Canoas Road. This project received final approval as submitted. Item B, 910 Camino Viejo Road. This project received final approval as submitted. Item C, 2118 Mount Calvary Road. This project received final approval as submitted. Item D, 1533 San Miguel Avenue. This project received final approval with the condition as noted. And lastly, item E, I'm sorry, that's not the last item. So item E, 841 De La Guerra Terrace. This project received project design approval with the NPO findings and was continued indefinitely to consent with comments as noted. And lastly, item F, 101 Juana Maria Avenue. This project has been continued 1 week to consent review with comments as noted. Okay. Items A through F were reviewed by Chair Sweeney and Board Member Pierce.
Thank you. Do I have a motion for approval?
I'll make the motion.
Do I have a second?
I'll second. Oh, go ahead.
Comments? Okay. Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, let's go to announcements. Mr. Ing, do we have announcements?
I do not have any announcements at this time.
Okay. I had a question. Did anyone get to last Friday's planning commission? I did not attend on the new zoning updates that happened last Friday.
No, I didn't.
No? Okay. Anyone else have announcements? I don't think we have a subcommittee report at this point. So we're going to move on to start our regular calendars. So we're at item number 1, 210 Meigs Road, Lot 4. Come up, please. This is here for project design approval. Project must comply with Planning Commission Resolution number 007-09. Project was last reviewed on January 5th, 2016. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm Bruce Blodorn.
Okay, welcome. Mr. Miller, could you read what we did last time, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Number one, the board appreciates changes made by the applicant on the proposed project. Number two, the board appreciates the addition of a screen wall on the upper level deck to eliminate direct views to and from the adjacent school. Number three, the design complies with Planning Commission Resolution number 007-09. Number four, the board appreciates the reduction of the FAR. Number five, the board recommends an additional window to the north elevation of the second floor. And number six, provide a landscape plan. Action taken by James, seconded by Motisha. The action was carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. If you could share with us, I think we had a landscape plan we needed to look at. And some
Yeah,
window
let's
changes.
start with that. And I had Arcadia.
Put you on there.
Okay, we had Arcadia Designs draw something up, and they put a hedge in, and once you put a hedge on this little area, there's no access. And we have an 8-foot site wall here that separates us from the school. We have windows on the second floor element that are above 6 feet. We also have some sound requirements, and when I talked to Allison DeBusk about the difficulty of putting a hedgerow in here, first off, you can only plant it to 12 feet, and then it has to be maintained, and then secondly, she said that when this went through Planning Commission, her thought was the intent for planting was to reduce the sound level, although we have other aspects that we need to do with the construction of the homes, the roofing, ventilation, that actually takes into consideration the sound.
Okay.
So,
And the other part of the landscape plan we've seen before?
yes, you've seen the front.
Okay.
I think we beefed this up with a few more plants, and then also in the back side yard, we added some plants. We weren't initially intending to do any rear yard landscaping, but these CV2s are bottle brush.
So these are bottle brush.
Yeah,
And that's bottle
that's a bottle brush.
Okay. And you had some window, we asked you to look at the windows.
Right. Would it be?
It was specifically north elevation.
That would be
So we're talking about
This one,
that one.
right.
And we poked a couple.
I thought you were asking for some study on windows right here.
Yeah,
Right. I guess the wrong sheet got put in, but he added 2 more windows in
Okay.
here.
Well, do we have a correct drawing anywhere?
Maybe not.
these are the ones that were submitted.
Okay.
Well,
It's kind of hard for us to,
yeah, I know it's
without a drawing.
you can't visualize it, but we'll be back for final. And
Well, you're here for project design approval, so we'll go to the board with, so do you have anything else?
no, that was mainly it.
Right, Ms. Crane, did we get any public comment?
No, we did not.
Okay, and I don't see one in the audience wanting to address this project. So let's bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions? The project's here for project design approval.
I do.
Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm not clear what you said about why the hedge was rejected, because it would only go to 12 feet, is that what I heard you
Well,
say?
I talked to Allison. I asked what the maximum height of the hedge is, and that's 12 feet. We already have an existing wall that's 8 feet, which is a privacy and a sound wall. And then also, I guess if you would look at,
That's not even on
probably sheet 4. No.
Is that what we're looking at? Is that-
Yeah, that's what you're looking at.
Do we have a scale? So is this grading accurate here? In other words, the finished floor of the house is roughly at the same level?
I
as
would
the
say
fence?
within a few inches, yes.
Okay, so that's fairly accurate. So basically, we have, this is drawn at 4 feet. Is it a 4 feet, or is it 5 feet?
It's 5 feet.
It's 5 feet, so this drawing's not, oh, I guess it's taken from the fireplace. Let's go back and look at the site plan.
That's not
Oh.
I was looking over here. It's this one. Looking at the elevation.
It doesn't work.
I need a property line. I need a site plan with a property line.
Oh, before has it. Shows it's 10 scale. It's about, it's like 5 feet between the,
Well, it's not dimensioned. Okay, because he drew the drawing showing the fireplace sitting back in. So the scale is what?
10.
10, 1 inch equals 10. So basically, we're at 5 feet.
Right.
Okay, and so if you go back to that elevation, at the tightest, this is 1/4 inch. This still isn't drawn correctly. If I do it from that line, the fence is actually right here. That's 5 feet. And that leaves roughly 3 feet and where the fireplace, the little piece of the fireplace that sticks out. But if you go back to the site plan, which I think you were showing somewhere, there's a walkway.
That might have been on the landscape plan.
Yeah, so here there is a door to the garage on the side. So there's a walkway. And what's the scale? This is 10. So that walkway is 3 feet wide, and it's away from the house by a foot.
I'd say.
Okay, so it's in the
12
middle of that
inches.
5. So obviously, if you have that walkway in there, you can't plant a hedge. The other thing I suspect, you know, the zoning book never tells you why we have setbacks. Can't get anybody to tell us why you have setbacks. But one of the reasons you have setbacks is you have fire access issues. So if they have a fire and somebody needs to get to this side of the house, they either have to fight it from the parking lot over here, or they have to be able to go through this gate and come up through the side of the house. And if you plant a hedge, at least right now, the only place a hedge could be planted is from here back, because they've got a door coming out of the garage that goes out to a side gate here. If you plant a hedge in here, then you have to eliminate that door and eliminate that gate.
And you have no access to the backyard.
And then if you go, well, you have access over here, theoretically, but there's planting there right now.
Okay, well, that's a clearer case then, because we cannot plant on the other side, obviously.
Oh, the school sign?
Yeah, can't have a hedge
They
with
don't own-
a.
they
We
don't own that
don't
property.
own that property, and I talked to Dave Ed Young, and he pretty much laughed at me.
Okay,
So,
Okay, here,
you.
I'm just doodling in, there's a 12-foot hedge,
right.
okay? So that's a 6-foot person. There's a 12-foot hedge. And this is the side, is that the side we're looking at?
Yeah.
West, no.
Well, is it? No.
East. So if you
Similar.
put a 12-foot hedge in there, go back and look at it. Here, right now, that's the 8-foot fence.
Correct.
If you put a 12-foot hedge in here, that line is roughly right there. So you're not
Helps.
hiding any, you're hiding house, but you're not hiding any windows,
okay.
okay?
Well, and I think, from my perspective, I mean, if you have a 5-foot space, you have windows, then you plant a hedge, you might as well eliminate windows because you're just basically looking
They
at.
still let light in, though.
You won't let light in if there's a hedge.
Get some.
12 foot.
Filtered.
Be extremely filtered.
Okay, other questions?
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
While you have your little pen and stuff out there, I was wondering if you could, because I'm trying this is this the last one of these that we're going to be looking at? Because I
Yeah.
know we've already looked at 3 or 4 others. Okay, so can you, I don't know how accurate my little thing is, but
Yeah.
can you show the public, this is where this one is?
This one's right here. So here's there's 3 houses on that side of this little cul-de-sac, 3 up there, 2 down here. The school is here. The ocean's that way. Miggs Road is right here.
At the end, there's nothing.
Okay, so
Nothing at
I'm,
the end.
nothing at the
Nothing
end.
here. 1, 2, 3.
Wait, where's the ocean?
The
Ocean's this way.
School's over here.
See the north arrow there, Bernie?
So this one's right next to the school.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Playground, and there's
low- and the
the
lower
wall.
side.
Parking
No,
lot.
it's a parking lot.
Oh, the parking lot.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And-
it's right there.
Okay,
This photo is not accurate now because there's a parking lot in here now.
all right, I'm trying to get oriented. Thank you.
Other questions? And did we have was this
Where's
color board
the
submitted for the first
ocean?
time, or
Here,
did we see this last
draw
time?
me the
I believe you saw it
Saw
last time.
Okay. Right.
And that was, you liked that.
Here's the
Okay.
ocean.
There's
Other
the road that
comments?
Comes up. Okay.
Okay.
Here's the cul-de-sac.
Well,
Okay.
yes, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
I kind of find it hard to approve unless I see those windows. It's kind of unfortunate. I don't know what to do. Kind of at a loss.
But this is
Talking
the one
about
we're
that
talking
lot.
about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Any other
Here's the
comments?
wall back here.
If the school's over there.
Okay, yeah, I have a question about the existing, well, they probably won't be existing very long, eucalyptus trees.
They're all being removed.
They're all being
They're all
removed.
gonna
We
be gone.
we already went through that, the last 4
There
hours.
was one remaining.
Right.
I'm
And-
just wondering how, if our landscape people can talk about or look at what that is going to be like there.
We've done that.
We've already
Done
reviewed
that?
that several times now.
Okay,
Yeah.
All
We've
right.
already gone over that many times. So we're here for house number 4. Eucalyptus trees are all gone. Each of these homes, the backyards, because they're individually purchased, are going to be landscaped by the owners that
Right.
buy them. The
Yeah, but
planning commission required landscaping the front yards. Mm-hmm. Okay.
And we are making going a little further
Right.
on this, and we conceded we'd do the same thing on Lot 3.
Right.
Is also beef up the landscaping in the rear yard
Right.
adjacent to the
So they
fence.
put bottle brush.
So I have a question.
Yes.
Is it possible to get the updated drawing and come back tonight, or with the windows shown?
I couldn't, but
If
No,
you're
what's
able to do that, we could probably look at it later. If not, we'll have to reschedule it.
that's okay. We'll go back to this.
Okay.
Okay. Any other comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
when the planning commission, I guess, put it as a condition that the new owner has to do the landscaping, so they have to, submit their own landscaping plan?
I don't believe
they
that
have
there's
to.
any.
No.
Private property.
It's private
So they
property.
can, and how do we know, is there a certain time frame that they do it before occupancy or within a certain time?
They don't have any
They're not
control over that.
obligated to landscape their backyards.
No, the front yards I'm talking
front
No,
about.
the front yards have to be done before occupancy.
Yeah, that's part
Oh,
of
I
the
see.
That's
approval.
part of our commitment.
Yeah.
Oh,
The
okay.
backyards don't have to, people don't want to landscape their backyards, they don't have to.
Right, okay.
And I guess I was more concerned about this concept that you've kind of elaborated on it, that we had about this side yard landscaping, because it's, it's not really realistic.
My recollection was the board wanted you to explore that. You've
Yeah,
explored it,
we've
come back
explored
and
it.
explain to it that you're really in the 5 feet, you're not able to do anything of significance. So that's your response, I assume. Okay?
That's acceptable.
Right? So, but the applicant does not have a response to our windows question here for us to look at. So the project, or the applicant initially wanted project design approval. but I might suggest that if you make a motion, it might not give it that because we don't have a complete package yet.
Can we make a motion to have them come back in 2 weeks?
You can,
Yeah. You can do anything.
And just bring that
certainly
sheet.
continue it for 2 weeks.
All right, I'll make a motion. We'd like to move to continue the project for 2 weeks, so that I can turn the light. We move to continue the project for 2 weeks, so that the applicant can show us the windows that were initially requested on the north elevation. And I don't know, should I go through the guidelines, or is that all?
No, you don't have to. However, I will just add that the Planning Commission resolution did require some screening landscaping to be put in the side yard. So if this board feels that what the applicant is proposing, or not proposing, is acceptable, it may be helpful to add that into
Okay,
your motion.
thank you for that comment. So I want to table my motion for a second, so I can clearly know what it is you are proposing.
I think
Well, I
he
think-
went over, what he did is, you're showing bottle brush
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
So I guess my question to our landscape designers, if that's bottle brush, how big does that get and what does it do?
Well, one thing is the fire department's not going to want a tree.
That close to the
Right.
residence.
It's
Yeah.
got to be 15 feet away, so I don't know.
Let me go backwards a little bit, because when I talked to Allison, she said that the real concerns, and, we got hit with, screening. Martha DeGasse said you could plant a 6-foot wide, well, you could plant it, and you could screen, but you can only plant shrubs to hedges to 12 feet. So, in essence, you've got like a little 4-foot band that's inaccessible above the 8-foot wall.
Looks like you have a bottle. Looks like you have a bottle brush that's just
We do.
Right there.
Well,
that's just going nowhere.
I know. I mean, you said that, but all I'm just saying is the fire department doesn't want to have a tree that close to the house.
Are these bottle brush trees or
Yeah,
shrubs or what are they?
They're
they're
a
tree
shrub.
size when they grow up.
Well, they
grow
do,
to be
but I mean,
trees.
they have them in front
I
of
have a
Bank of
question.
Montecito.
Yeah, those
Jamie?
are little.
Yeah.
So is that high fire, or does it matter?
No, it's not high fire.
So I'm questioning, does
does
it matter if it's not high fire?
This is not a high
The
fire.
general rule to have a tree 15 feet away from a
So
residence.
you're saying the bottle brush go into a tree, they don't grow into a bush?
Well, yeah, there are different varieties,
Yeah.
Some are shrubs and some
Yeah.
are trees.
So do we know,
I would
They
think,
plant it as a street tree.
yeah.
So what is
Yeah.
what is your recommendation?
I think he's going to come back. Arcadia knows what to do. They need to make it right.
I think we included.
Well, how do you make it right?
Well, there's just one really that looks like it's the offending tree there, the northernmost one along the property line.
Right.
There's only one that's
Right.
not complying.
And that's not really screening, that's kind of a,
this is a tree?
Well, it's to break up the side of the house.
Right.
but-
Well, there's no
So I-
space there to even break up the side of the house. I mean, there's only.
Well, but the point is,
How
you
about some
could,
vines on the
you-
fence? Or
you
no?
could-
There's a wall, though. It's a solid
there's a wall.
Yeah,
But
it's
you
a
could-
solid wall to 8 feet.
let Fred speak,
You
please.
could plant something here that would give it scale, would give what they intend to do. We just need to ask the landscape designer to come back with an alternate to this bottle brush that will grow into a tree. If they can come back and show us a bottle brush that isn't a specimen that grows into a tree, that might satisfy it, or some other plant.
Well, that's a good point that you brought up is it's a wall, so we could actually have several vines growing up the wall to break up that.
The
now.
vines, what is it
Well,
going to
they're
do?
not going to do anything because it's a solid wall. That's what I was just asking. If it's an 8-foot solid wall, the vine's not going to get that
No,
much
I meant
taller.
against the
So
house.
can we say, as
On
a,
the-
On the house? No way.
It's a maintenance nightmare for a lot of people.
no, I would think that, as the board, that we would, can we say that the 8-foot wall is sufficient as
Yeah.
screening?
I would think so.
And then have you landscape it appropriately, but not necessarily to screen, but what is
Yeah,
appropriate?
I would think that would probably be the best solution, because we have landscaping here, we have landscaping here, and this, I think,
Okay, so
is to the owner's discretion.
I think I can finish my motion. And then we'd also like to see a landscape plans on the side yard. The board feels that the 8-foot wall is sufficient for screening in this particular area. since the space between the wall and the structure is very limited in space. So we feel that a hedge would not necessarily be appropriate planting in this particular area.
So in your motion, you're accepting this piece of the landscaping as it's shown?
Oh, we'd also recommend that the lemon bottle brush be removed that's inside the setback.
Adjacent to, in the 5-foot
That's
corridor.
too close to
In the
the house.
5-foot corridor adjacent to the house.
Because this one appears to be,
That
appears
one,
to be.
Those are okay. There's 3 others in the back, but yeah, 1 other in the
All right,
setback. but that
so
doesn't
does
count.
everyone understand the motion? Okay, is there a second to that motion? Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second it.
Okay, there's a second. Discussion.
With the maker of the motion, do you want it to go the full board or the consent?
Oh, there's the windows.
Yeah, we got
windows.
to
It's
come
the
back
full
for the
board.
windows.
Full board.
Okay.
Full board.
It'll be quick.
I would think.
That's the motion on the floor. Is there any other questions or discussion?
Yes.
Hearing none, the chair will call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, so we'll see you back here in 2 weeks.
Okay, thank you.
Go.
Uh-oh.
All right, let's go to item number 2, 1212 San Miguel Avenue. This is here for project design and final approval is requested. The project must comply with the staff hearing officer's resolution number 008-16. Project was last reviewed on November 2nd, 2015. And
The details were added to this one.
Mr. Miller will read our last action, and he has it. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Jason Grant with J. Grant Design Studio.
Jessica Harlan, Surf Design.
Mr. Miller is going to read our last set of comments.
Yes, Mr. Chair. Number 1, the board appreciates the quality of architecture and materials and the consistency in appearance with the neighborhood. Number 2, the front porch modification is acceptable. And that's it.
Okay, thank you. So before we go to the applicant's presentation, Mr. Ng, I'm assuming that today's action is predicated on the fact that the staff hearing officer already saw this project now and gave approval for the modification?
Yes, staff hearing officer has seen the project, and there may be an error in that footer. It's based on the plans that were submitted, it's eligible for project design approval.
So it is eligible.
For project design approval, I
Okay.
don't think there are construction drawings there.
Okay.
Well, I did. That's what I added the details and brought along color board and whatnot. So
Okay, we'll take a look at that.
yeah, great.
Okay.
Okay, so it's been a while since I saw you. I went off and got my mod and then came back. And so that mod, just to remind the board, was just related to there's a little front porch that's there. We're going to alter it by making it a little bit more charming. And then, of course, the corner of the house is already legal nonconforming in the side yard. Or in the front yard. So that was picked up. So here's the footprint of our little house. We're adding basically a 400 square foot, a little less than 400 square foot second story addition right in that area. Existing floor plan looks like this. Proposed is just reworking the existing spaces, and then, of course, with our upper floor addition, small balcony over here, small balcony towards the front, which the board, if you remember, we commented, and that was part of the minutes of the last meeting, on this balcony over here, which is in closer proximity than the guideline to the side yard. So that was in the minutes. Here are our proposed elevations. We're adding in some French doors and a fireplace, and here's our new entryway, and here's that second-story addition as seen from the rear. And then, of course, as seen from the street. Existing single-car garage will remain. Yes, we moved over to standing seam, and before we poo-pooed it, let me show you some details. Architectural details will be clad casement windows with extended sill, trim detail. Here's a bay window detail. Here's the entry porch with the Santa Barbara sandstone down below, which is going to tie in with the existing little stone wall, which is on the property now, which looks like this, just to remind everybody. So it's a charming little wall. And so we're going to key off of that and kind of bring that material back up into the house. This is our immediate next door neighbor. Here's us, and then here's the neighbor looking the other direction. And so there's the details. Standing seam roof. We were at an asphalt shingle last time, but then my owner saw photos and got inspired, as owners do. And so we'd like to do a standing seam metal roof, much like this, without all the glare, which everybody's going to comment on. Here's a piece of the standing seam roof. It's a weathered copper, ties in beautifully with what our exterior light fixtures would be. It's a very dull, muted color, and it actually works well with the architectural style that we're going. So that's what we're hoping for, and that's what we're proposing. If for any reason we can't get support for that, which I think we should be able to, then we would go back to an asphalt slate gray shingle roof and look like every other house in the immediate area. But so with that said, I'll let Jessica talk about her landscape. The board asked for a landscape plan, and so we have one, and I'll let you guys look at that.
You guys should have so, starting with the charming stone wall in the front, we're going to be breaking a little portion up so we have a central access to that new covered porch. Currently, there's only access through the driveway, so we're trying to really kind of define that new entry and make it a little more street friendly. Where there's currently almost a row of cypress, we're removing the cypress and just putting a couple cork oaks along the street frontage to, again, create nice little view sheds, but also a minor amount of screening from the street since they are on that corner. As we come in the front, the plant palette is primarily low water use. We are using a little bit of the UC Verde buffalo grass, but then we have elements like ornamental grasses, pennisetum, fairy tales, lavender, dwarf olives to create kind of a beachy Mediterranean. Then as we go to the backyard, it's very much the same with a little bit of that low water use lawn substitute in the UC Verde with Coleonema westringa and Agave attenuata to kind of create a lower water use buffer around. As we go up, there's an existing terrace, series of terraces. We're going to be doing new walls to match the existing, where they're currently just landscape ties, with a variety of citrus plants. So the client wanted to see semi-dwarf, Meyer lemon, bear's lime, caracara, and mandarin. There's currently existing hedges along the property line. The varieties vary from Eugenia to Podocarpus. We're wanting to unify and do a Prunus caroliniana bright and tight. And that's it so far.
Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Just didn't cover the windows. It'll be a real casement windows, wood frame, clad exterior, and then we'll do that extended sill detail around there. And with that, happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Is anyone in the audience? Oh, go ahead.
I just remembered one thing, the Parkway.
That's Bernie Sanders' moment.
Oh, gosh. The Parkway, what we're trying to do is mimic the driveway across the street where they currently have California gold gravel and a variety of succulents. They have probably 3 or 4 different succulents. We're just limiting it to the agave attenuata to just have a low, under 30-inch planting with a gravel base.
Okay.
And that's it.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this item? Mr. Ng, do we have any correspondence?
No, we do not.
Okay, thank you. Chair will then close public comment, bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions?
Is it detached? There's a, sorry, our description here says detached 241 square foot garage.
No, quite attached.
It's already there.
It's there.
The garage.
Correct.
Yeah.
Existing square foot, one-story single-family residence with a detached 240. Okay, well, the description is wrong then.
Yeah.
Okay.
Quite attached.
Okay. Other questions? Yes.
About the landscape, are there any street trees currently in the Parkway?
No.
I'm sorry, there are no street trees in the Parkway, I see that. Also, I'm wondering about the on-center spacing of the Prunus lioni, the hedge material. The 3.5 feet on center seems pretty,
It's not Liani, it's Caroliniani. Caroliniana, bright and tight. It's 40 inches currently, and that was just.
is that a dwarf
That is a
variety?
dwarf
Bright and
variety.
tight.
Yeah, it maxes at 8 foot and is about 40 inches on center max. So it'll be a little gappy to begin with.
Okay, those are my questions, thank you.
Okay, other questions?
I have one about the
Yes.
roof. So one of these sheets that you showed us has an example of the mixed-use
Right.
roof. Is that something that you're considering, or that's
No,
just to show us the top?
Yeah, we really would love to do the standing seam, keep the material the same all the way through.
Put it on the camera, please.
So we'd
Pictures down here, please.
really like to do the standing seam all the way through. Once again, here's an actual piece of the material. Look at nice and dull and muted, not shiny. So that's what we would prefer to do. If we can't do that, then we would probably just go back to an asphalt shingle and just do that throughout, as opposed to kind of changing the roofing materials.
Other questions? I'm going to follow up on the hedge question. So are you removing the existing hedges?
So the Eugenia along this side, we'd like to remove. And then currently there's an existing hedge that's not even on the property line.
Oh, okay.
And that will be removed.
So
and
that, and then
replaced.
you're going to, okay.
And then we have a portion that will be new.
Okay. And then exterior lighting in the landscape,
None proposed
None?
so far.
okay. And did you have a color board in already?
Yes, it's
Floating around. Could we have the color board back to the camera somewhere, wherever you find it, please? And then the little picket fence that's in the front of the house now, that'll go away, okay? And then the little fountain on the top,
Oh, here it is.
Yes.
will it have a timer on it? How does that?
Yes, it would definitely have a timer on it and be just a
Recirculating pump.
with a little 5-gallon basin or something.
Right. And then I think you had already gone over the exterior lighting on the house itself.
Yes,
You
and
showed a
here's the
fixture.
fixture itself, and they're located on the plan. And there's the Santa Barbara sandstone, which will tie in with our little stone wall. The siding, doors and windows will be white.
And then and then your standing seam roof that you're proposing, you're showing here a wide seam.
Yeah.
Or is it a narrow seam?
It's a narrow seam like this. This is just an example of the color of the material.
Okay,
It won't
so
be,
it's
it won't
really
be
a narrow
box.
seam.
Correct.
Okay.
Much like that.
Okay. I think those are my questions. Any other questions? Okay, let's go to comments. The applicant's wishing to get project design approval. He's also trying to get final approval, but we have to see if it's a complete set of plans.
I have comments.
Yes.
I'm not comfortable with the standing metal seam. It kind of looks like a bowling alley to me on the roof. I was just looking at it. It just feels, this is a more softer, aesthetically pleasing look than having all these severe. It just doesn't work for me to have that. I'm sorry.
One down.
Yeah.
Any other comments?
Otherwise, it's beautiful.
Yeah, let's go. Thank you.
I like the standing seam. I like it because it gives it some character. I mean, the roof to me looks like it's just a. Yeah.
Other comments?
I won't be supporting the standing seam metal. I don't like it with that A-frame. I think it's too severe.
Okay.
And I'll chime in too, and I think I would agree with that for neighborhood compatibility, I think I'd rather go in the other direction, the softer direction.
Other questions or other comments? Excuse me. Anyone else? Okay. Let's see. One of the challenges of doing a standing seam roof, having done many in my career, but mostly on public buildings, is that when you start applying the standing seam to a smaller structure, particularly where you have a lot of different roof planes, the detailing becomes not complicated to do on the designer's standpoint, but in execution, you end up with a lot of different little conditions. And in a lot of ways, it kind of defeats the standing seam purpose, because typically the standing seams you kind of see on larger roofs, particularly in snow country where you want to get the snow off the roofs, et cetera, and you generally see them in a much plainer roof configuration. And this house has a lot of little breakups, so I think your client's image of the standing seam, particularly even that photograph where it's kind of like a nice clean porch, and you notice that even in this case they split it between the porch and the roof here, because when you do the detailing for standing seam, when you have these kind of roof conditions, it starts to get really complicated, not only in execution, but then it looks complicated when you look at it. So it's not that I'm against the standing seam in the neighborhood, because we do have other standing seam roofs in this neighborhood.
Right.
And even in the same color palette. But I think in your case, given the design that you're putting together on this little small, really charming cottage, that I think it's going to defeat where you really want to be, where your owner wants to be, with a really kind of cute house in this kind of very awkward standing seam. Even though they probably got mesmerized by the photographs, I think in the application it's probably not going to work. So in that view, I kind of have a hard time saying, yeah, that's the best thing to do.
Asphalt it is.
The fountain timer, the only reason I brought that up is my next door neighbor put in a fountain that's right outside of our bedroom window, but he hasn't on a timer, and we pre-agreed
Perfect.
the time ahead of time. So I would just urge you to have your client talk to the
Yeah, it's
neighbors,
an apartment complex.
whatever, so
Yeah,
that nobody
we'll
complains
coordinate.
about the fact that the fountain goes on at 2 in the morning,
Definitely.
even though they sound wonderful. Let's see. I think that was it. But I'd also encourage you, when you come back if we give you project design approval, if you come back for final, if in fact you're going to do some exterior landscape lighting in the backyard, and most people, given the amount of money they're going to spend here, may want to do that, just make sure you bring it back so we can look at it. Okay? Other comments?
Well, we're here for final approval today.
Well, they're here for project design approval, but they'd like to get final approval. So if they want final approval, one of the things we're obligated to do is to kind of leaf through the set of drawings to see if it looks like a legitimate set of
Let me
drawings.
show you what we have here. So of course, obviously our site plan. So proposed floor plans, existing floor plan, proposed roof plan. Of course, all the proposed elevations with the details keyed in. Again, the details that we went over: eave details, railing details, fireplace cap details, window details, door details, bay window details, waterproofing details for the deck, trim details for the trim, stone veneer attachment details, and then our landscape plan.
Nothing structural.
Nothing structural.
Nothing structural.
No
No
structure.
beefing up the foundation, no,
Is the irrigation on this one?
No, I had not provided irrigation.
So we don't have an irrigation plan. Okay.
And on the stone veneer, do you have a sample of that?
It's part of the color board, and it looks just like this.
Wherever the color board went to.
Yeah, there.
Oh,
So it matches that little wall that's kind of in the front. It's kind of over sandstone.
right.
what happens to shear and is all that handled
Well,
in the building?
That's handled in the building department. We're obligated to just
Oh, aesthetically.
determine aesthetically, does it have
Set of
a
drawings.
set of drawings here with appropriate details that'll get us. One of the reasons we're supposed to do final is to see if the details kind of emulate what's been shown on the elevations. Sometimes we may get a set where the elevations might be approvable, but then the details aren't done in a way that will get us to the finish. So it appears, based on, without spending an appropriate amount of time that an architect would spend checking these things, it appears that most stuff is here. You know, they've got eave details, they got corbel details, et cetera. What isn't here is an irrigation plan and a lighting, a landscape lighting plan, if there's going to be that. And so the chair might suggest whoever is going to make a motion, if you want to give it final approval and project design approval, then you might send it to consent with a few items that need to be cleaned up. That might be a way to handle it. Or send it to consent for final with a few things to be cleaned up. But I'll leave it up to whoever makes the motion.
We'll make a motion.
Okay?
The board would like to, I would like to give this project design approval to return to consent calendar with the following conditions. That you provide an irrigation plan, that the roof material be the original what we approved last time, asphalt shingling rather than the standing seam metal, and that you provide landscape lighting. And I think that is it.
Now, if you're going to give it project design approval, you also need to read into the record the neighborhood compatibility requirements.
Yes. The board finds this project to be compatible with the neighborhood MPO findings. It has consistency and appearance, uses quality architecture and materials. It's compatible with the surrounding areas and supports our good neighbor guidelines.
Okay. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I second it.
Are there any further comments?
I just have a quick question, just to refresh my memory. I believe that this is wood, correct? Wood, all, are they matching? Okay, great, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, comments? Hearing none, Cheryl, call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, so you go to
Thank you all.
consent for final.
Thanks.
Okay. Go. Okay. Let's see if that goes.
I'll take what you don't need.
Okay, there you go.
That goes there. I don't know what they need out of that.
Got it.
Okay, let's go to item number 3, 1758, Calle Boca del Cañon.
Thank you.
Brian, I didn't recognize you without your green on.
Okay, this
Emerald ball for.
This project is here for project design approval as requested. The project was last reviewed on December 14th, 2015. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Raymond Appleton with Permit Planners, and I'm here with the owners of the property, Mr. and Mrs. Ecker.
I'm Leslie Eckert.
Okay, welcome. Mr. Miller, while the plans are being laid out, could you read what our comments were last time, please?
Yes, Mr. Chair. Number one, the board appreciates the quality of the proposal and time and effort to create a sustainable, non-obtrusive design. Number two, provide roofing material. Number three, the board supports the location of solar panels on the garage. Number four, provide solar panel materials. Number five, provide landscape plan for entry area of property. Action carried by Miller, seconded by Pierce. Action was carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. If you could share with us how you addressed those comments?
Okay. When we resubmitted, just not only those items, but we produced the residential sections that were required. We also showed on the site plan that the solar panels were going to be on the garage. We discussed that. We show the solar panel materials on the garage sheet. They're called out. And this is a picture of exactly what they're going to look like. Dark blue glass panels over each panel, and then they're black anodized aluminum surround and flat. Want to see that? And we also provided a preliminary landscape plan. It's on the last sheet from Sam Maphis, who could not be here today. He had a project at Montecito Board. But it's just a preliminary plan, but we'd like you to look at it, take a look. We'll come back with the final plan with the irrigation and lighting and so on. We provided also a material legend and a color legend on all of the section sheets, all of the elevation sheets, I should say, for the garage and for the house. And there's an exterior lighting detail of the exterior lighting fixture.
And the lighting fixture is on a sheet somewhere?
It's on the seat where the elevations are. And it's called out on all the elevations, the garage and the house.
Okay, anything else?
Well, let's see, I think that was basically what we're looking for design approval. We were going to ask for final also, but we're required to have, I think we're pretty ready. We're going to get, since it's a modular house, we've got to get the modular company to give us a section of all the little details of the doors and windows, so they're whining about all that. Usually there's some area out east somewhere, and they just roll through, But they're breaking their plans down and getting them to us. And we may just attach their modular submittal for the building department to our sheet next time, and it'll just have everything there. Also, we have to get a Tier 3 plan from the civil engineer. And I don't know if you rule over that, but our planning department wants it now.
Well, this doesn't have an irrigation, landscape.
Yeah, I've got a sample of it if you'd like to look and just give me any ideas of what else you might want to see on it. The engineer's already prepared it, and if there's something on there now that you could just tell us to bring back, we would appreciate comments about that. It's from Ashley Vance. I think you're familiar with them.
Yankee Plant.
We have to turn around.
Oh, there you go.
Okay.
The property, is very sloped down here, and then then it kind of softens out here. And so they're proposing the drainage plan with drains and the motor court and driveway, and then around the house, picking it up from the gutters and bringing it down to a rain garden here, and also bringing it out to a spreader here and a spreader here.
That's it?
Yeah, and it's all subterranean. I mean, everything's, out of view.
All right. Before we go to questions of the board, is there anyone in the audience wishing to address this project? Mr. Ing, did we get any correspondence?
There's no correspondence.
Okay. Chair will close then public comment and bring it back to the board for questions. Anyone have questions?
I don't have any questions.
Yes? No? Okay. Let's see. I did have just a couple of technical. Color board, did you already see?
Oh, yeah, no, I've got the color board here.
Okay.
Yeah. And this also shows the roofing material again. The roof itself, this roof faces the hillside. No one can see it. Okay. It's all sloped dramatically back, and this is the color of the roof.
It's a matte gray.
Okay.
Matte
And
gray.
then
Narrow seam standing.
the paving material out here, did you have a sample of that or a
We don't
photograph?
have a sample of
You have
that.
you have a photograph or a color?
No, we don't.
Okay.
I have something on my iPad, but it's not a print. You can leave.
What color is it?
It's just grays, tones of gray.
Oh, tones of gray. And the concrete is,
Well, ultimately, you're going to need to have that on a color board
okay, for final.
for final, yeah.
Okay.
And, well, and you may even, depending where the board goes, you might need it now. Let's see. We talked about Torm 3 and, okay, so those were my questions. Anyone else have questions? Any comments? Questions? Yes.
Curious, this is the first time I've seen it. Just because I wasn't there, but where was the existing house that's going to be demolished?
Where you see the garage,
Okay.
that was the existing house.
And then,
Out here.
okay. And then I noticed on the landscape plan, like they kind of address really mainly the motor court, but yet you're going to have,
By the way, this is the existing here, and this is the whole fence.
Let's come back and point here. This is on television.
Yeah, this is the existing house
Thank you.
currently, and then this is the garage of the existing house.
Basically, where the garage is in the proposal,
that's where.
that's where the existing house is, yeah.
Okay. And so then, my question on the landscape, the preliminary landscape plan, it just really addresses the motor court area. But it seems though, as if there's going to be a lot of kind of new construction that you would, well, I'll save that for comments, but.
We weren't proposing a lot of landscaping, leaving everything pretty natural, or more disturbed replacing it just with what was there.
Okay,
So,
and that's
so that's why
probably-
they asked us just to come up with the one for the entryway.
Oh, okay, because I wasn't here, so,
Yeah.
yeah, maybe I could look at some pictures.
Yeah,
of the
they're coming right here. I wasn't here either, so
Okay.
I'm catching up as well.
Other questions? Okay, then let's go to comments. So they'd like project design approval.
I just want to say, Mr. Chair, just for those that haven't seen this project before, we went in a long discussion regarding the style of the house, because you know how I would be about something like this, but it was pretty made clear that it's a very organic structure within the property, and it's pretty well hidden within the greenery. And so I think I was pretty comfortable that I think they were very sensitive, as it says in the minutes, of being very organically included. I don't want to say organically married into the property, I guess. So that's
Okay.
why I thought the design was
I
appropriate.
see, okay.
It's not the same thing.
Other comments? Okay, then the chair would look for motion.
I guess they're not the same. Maybe they are.
So this is all kind of around area.
I would add that the landscaping only went beyond the request for it right at the entry because we are required to have a view screen hedge. And so we put that in the landscaping there from the motor court.
Okay,
We're looking for the garage door description.
It's to the next to the last sheet. Oh, the garage door.
Glass.
That panel is hand glass. It was all glass before, but we've changed it.
Oh, you've changed it, okay.
Could show them on
I
this.
don't think this is an
Yeah,
updated
last
set.
week they commented that the bottoms were all glass, we converted to panel. And so those were converted to panels,
Yeah, I
across
know,
all the
this one,
bottom
see, that's
three
why I said
rows.
this is.
So those
And all
are
that glass was taken out.
wood and glass up here? Or what is this?
Glass at the top.
Right. And this
Just
is
one row of glass at the top.
great.
Here you can see the panels and glass.
And that was a change since the last hearing.
Okay. So this is an old set.
I'll make a motion, Mr. Chair.
okay.
I would let the applicant know that we do appreciate you coming back and trying to work with us and build your beautiful greenhouse. That's probably going to be a real showcase, and it complies with the guidelines. And so I'd like to move to give it, let's see, project design approval. And I guess it still needs to come back for what?
Final approval.
For final
It
approval.
needs to come back, but what does it need to do? What do we need?
You need to, this is either here for project design approval, in which case you're going to indicate that it's compatible with the neighborhood, if that's your intent of your motion. You're going to provide any additional comments that they need to pay attention to before they come back for final, and then your decision is whether it comes to the full board for final or whether it goes to the consent calendar for
Okay,
final.
I'd like to give it project design approval to come back to consent for final approval. And at consent, we'd like to have the full drawings, and we could make the following findings. That the project, do I make the findings now?
Yes, if you're giving a
Does-
project design approval, yes.
Right, it is consistent with the neighborhood, it's compatible, it's quality materials, the landscaping plan is acceptable, and good neighbor guidelines were met.
Okay, that's the motion on the floor. Is there a second to the motion? Okay, any further discussion? Hearing none, the chair will call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, so you'll go to consent calendar.
This is an
for
old
final.
set, so
Thank you very much.
Okay,
that's okay.
I look forward to hearing you on NPR.
Were there any comments you'd like to give us that you look for more than this? I mean,
that's essentially all you're going to need to have.
We're 20 minutes
Okay.
ahead.
Does that three-tier have to be done by an engineer?
Thank you.
It's qualified. Okay, let's go to item Oops, we're ahead of schedule.
Oh, boy, are we ahead.
We're putting ahead. I'm going to declare a recess. I'm going to urge you to read the additional letters that came on for our last item, number 5, that were given to us about 30 minutes prior to today's meeting. So if you'll take your next 20 minutes and spend some time reading those letters so I don't have to read them in the meeting, I'd appreciate it. So we declare a 15-minute recess. Road. This is here for a second concept review. The comments only. Project still requires an environmental assessment and a staff hearing officer review for requested modifications. Are you telling me my microphone's on?
Everybody back on.
Wow. Okay. So second concept review. Comments only. Project requires an environmental assessment and staff hearing officer review for requested modifications. If you could introduce yourself, please.
Hi, I'm Dawn Sherry. I'm the architect on the project. Good afternoon.
Ma'am.
This is Linda Kiefer, the property owner.
Okay, thank you. Okay, before you start, Mr. Miller, if you could read what our last set of comments were, please.
Yeah, study the placement of the equestrian structures and redesign them to be more in compliance with the design guidelines and zoning setbacks. Action was carried by Bernstein, seconded by Woolery. Motion was carried unanimously, and James was absent.
Thank you. So if you could share with us what you've done to respond to those comments.
We, after speaking to the neighbor who was here at the last meeting, if you remember, who had some strong opinions about the proximity of the round pen and horse-related placement of the round pen and the arena and the horse-related activities closer to the property line. Even though they were just fenced areas, we completely redesigned. And if you remember, before we had a 2-car garage running off at this angle, and then you come in here and then go into the 2-car garage, and it was off of the kitchen, which worked really well. But because that 2-car, it was actually almost a 3-car. It was a 3-car garage essentially because it had storage. We took that entire wing and we got rid of it and we moved it so that we could move everything up away from the setback. Before, all 3 of these buildings were, well, this building had the setback applied to it, but the round pen and the arena were up against this property line, and this is the neighbor that showed up in the meeting that didn't want the activities going on near her property line. So we spent a long time, and I think it actually, Fred, might have been your suggestion to take this whole garage wing and turn it. And we tried turning it this way, but then the access to get in and out prohibited the ability to do the arena and the round pen and the tack room here. None of this portion of the lot is usable. This is right up next to the street, and none of this area is usable because there's not enough room. And so what we did, which we like, is we put this garage and storage, the 2-car garage, the storage, and the gym all kind of in front of the house, and it gives the house a little more privacy, and it's off of the kitchen. So you drive in, and we're kind of hugging. This is a line of the existing driveway, but instead we would push the driveway back a little bit so there would be a small, very small retaining wall. Not exactly sure how much yet, but a very small retaining wall up here, and then we would drive in and out. There would be a really nice carriage-style garage door. This now would act more as like a courtyard, which is kind of the way we visualize this front area anyway, and it gives the property owner, it gives Linda and Jerry a little bit more of a chance to have privacy in this kind of tree area. The big trees would remain. There's actually now 3 or 4 big rocks, big boulders that have to be moved, but I'm going to go through those.
Okay, go on.
That's okay. But I wanted to go through them with all of you so I could explain it. So even though we have to move those boulders, this also created a little breakfast patio. It provides covered access from the garage to the house with a trellis. The 2-car garage is here. And then now the storage, I'll show you, is this is, by the way, the TAC feed floor plan. This goes between the round pin and the arena, just to show you the uses that are going on in there. This is the two-car garage as you come in. This is a loading area for a wheelchair that might be useful in the future that we're planning for. This walkway now going to the house. The gym now, instead of being attached to the garage and the rest of the structure and the storage at all, it's broken up into a little different configuration of the plan. So what, Joe? So nothing on the house really changed, except I should point out that we did have a strange area that we were trying to work with. This is the line of the existing house went across. The last time you saw it had, the house comes in like this, and this is an extra area of the covered deck, but it's odd, and it makes the kitchen a little difficult to get a nice big island in, so it would be easier for the house to just continue this line straight across. It's virtually invisible from the outside because this is all covered deck anyway, and it's on the back of the house, but I wanted to point that out. Here you can see, obviously, that now we just have a walkway connecting the office area and the kitchen, instead of that gym and the storage and the three-car garage kind of off on this wing. And yeah, you guys take that, and then I'll put this one. And then I just wanted to show you, because I didn't know if the point of the whole functioning of the arena, the round pin, and the aesthetics of those things were coming across really well. But the whole idea is for all of these fenced areas to be very natural. And we're not talking about white, painted fences everywhere. So when you look at the property, there's a bunch of white fencing. We want everything to blend into the landscape. We want the landscaping to work around it. We want the fencing to be natural. This is going to be a really nice place for the horses. And it's not going to be dusty. It's going to be, the whole concept is very clean and kind of luxurious for the horses. And the idea of the tack room is very clean and organized and tidy. And this is an idea for the courtyard off of the entry. Just to give you an idea of what this one's white, but it's not supposed. That's just a kind of an image of the landscaping growing around it. But the tack room itself, which is the only building that is, it's kind of seen from anywhere. It's going to have nice landscaping growing up around it. But I wanted to show you kind of what that structure looked like, because it takes on kind of a board and bat finish, but with a natural color on the outside, so that it kind of blends. And then landscaping, of course, will kind of grow up around it, and we don't want it to look like an industrial building. We want it to just blend in and, accented with some white trim, so that everything kind of blends in with the house. And I just wanted you guys to have that, so you had an image of what's going on here. And Linda, do you want to add anything?
I don't know if there's questions.
Okay. Right, that's it? Okay. All right. Is there anyone in the audience wishing to address the project? Mr. Eng, do we have any communication?
No, I have not received anything.
Seeing none, Chair will close communication and bring it back to the board for questions. Who has questions?
Bring it back to the site plan.
Yeah. So have you?
Joe has got a question.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Let him ask his question.
I didn't hear you. Sorry.
Garage door is here.
And that's because
Kind of tight.
that's because this is the area that we need to kind of get around to the back.
You're having vehicular,
We have to, yeah.
and this is the parking that you had down there before.
Yes, exactly.
So you got vehicular traffic going down through here and right here, and you're getting in the garage door right there.
And this is how the driveway is kind of moving back to accommodate that backup. It's 26 feet.
I got it. I think I have it. No, I don't.
Somebody has to scale.
I see why we're confused, because the orientation is
16.
different,
She's saying it's 26.
the noise is different, so we're having trouble, like,
Or 27.
It's a little, if I scale it right, it's a little less than 26, but roughly.
which I really still don't know how to.
Okay, other questions?
Okay, well, they're sort of a twofold, so just to, on
that
that, are there going to be like horse trailers, and will they be able to fit through there okay?
Are there any horse trailers?
There'll be one because we have to be able to take the horses out
Right,
at any moment.
yeah.
So we'll have one on the property, and it's we were talking about putting it in between the arena.
Excuse me. Can we have just one conversation, please? Thank
In
you.
between the arena and the side of the building here.
And have you run this new idea by the neighbor who was a little bit disgruntled before?
I did not. Did you talk to him? I was surprised she
No, I
wasn't
didn't
here. But when we left, we talked to her outside, and we told her that that we were going to make efforts to get the structures away from the property line. And I was just assuming that she was on the list of interested parties, or she asked to be on, because she was so interested. But we just did what she wanted.
That's what she wanted.
We didn't
Okay.
argue, and we just found a way to make it happen.
Thank you.
Other questions?
Yeah, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
What was the type of roofing material you were looking at doing for the?
It's a metal roof. This building?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is the
This is clay tile.
Oh, that's existing? Mm-hmm. I got it. Okay. Is the garage clay tile?
Yes, the garage would match the architecture of the house.
Oh, I see. Okay, great.
Okay. Other questions? Yes.
Mr. Chair, so the additional 122 square feet, where's that? What was that for? It says the revised project will result in an additional 122 square feet to increase 2% of the FAR.
It might be because the latest proposal might have been the tack room might have been slightly different in size. Oh, no, it's this. Sorry, it's the house.
Oh, okay.
It's that area under the covered patio on the southwest side that was
You bumped
used
it
to
out
be a
or
covered
something?
deck, and now we're just incorporating it into the house so the kitchen can get a little larger.
Oh, okay.
So this additional 2%, does that make it 108% FAR? Is that what
I
we're
don't
reading here?
think so. I think it makes 106.
No, it used to be at 104, and now it's at 106.
Okay, thank you.
And so just, may I, to
Yes.
clarify, the 448 square feet is connecting to the home, and it's going to have the tile roof, like the existing house.
The what is going to be?
448 square feet of addition to the existing single-family residence.
Yeah, that's these little areas in here, and it's just additions to certain areas of the house, and it's all going to be the clay tile. Yeah.
And then we talked about, let's see, and then the conversion of the garage, so that's already there. And then the accessory building is the one with the metal roof.
Can we put that photograph back on?
Oh, and by the way, I should mention that the hay is covered. But it's a very low shed roof that again will be, will make sure that the landscaping from the street blocks it. But we have to have the hay being delivered, from the street, and the truck that delivers it can't go down the side of the house. But it's in an area. I can show you the section. It drops. This is level, but then there's a drop between the arena and the hay, so that, and this is just a kind of a diminutive metal roof with no walls, and because that way we don't have to include it in the, because it's not considered a structure, so we don't have to include it in the mod for the square footage. They asked us if we could keep the hay storage from having, floor walls. I think we have to have a wall on the back side because of the wind.
And you're making what hay was delivered in this building?
No, there was hay storage in this building. I don't.
Originally, I think.
Did we
Original.
originally?
I have the original
Oh, we
right
had it
here.
all together, and then what we did was we split the buildings. So that, because now that we've moved everything together, we rather than have everything in one big building, we made this building smaller.
Looks like that building's the same size as it. No, it's not. Take it back. It is smaller.
And
Okay.
then we moved the hay
Gotcha.
to that area.
Yes.
We split things up more, which makes the project more expensive, but we think it works better than having a big building in between the arena and the round table.
What is this? This is a hallway right here between.
It connects the house with.
Connect the main part of the family room, dining room, past the master bedroom down into whatever is down
Past
in this area.
the bedroom, Linda's mother's bedroom. And then it goes into Linda's office and Jerry's office down here.
Yes, ma'am.
Horses will you be accommodating?
I think we're allowed
Isn't it
5.
two
We're
per
allowed
acre or
5, but
something?
we'll probably have 4
I
at
see.
the max.
Okay.
Yeah.
Other questions? Yes, questions. Okay, I have several. You mentioned that more than likely this will be a little retaining wall down here. Have you any idea what the material is going to be? Stone or
We'd like
concrete
to use
block?
some of the
or-
stone that we're going to be
Okay.
getting from removing those large boulders.
Okay.
And we also want to use, Fred, that same stone around the backside of this retaining wall, and anywhere we can use the stone so that everything, again, looks really natural.
Okay. And then just to be clear, because of your redesign, you're now not needing any modifications
We do need a modification for accessory square footage in excess of 500 square feet.
for basically that building or this building?
This building plus the gym, in addition to the
So
gym.
you do need a modification for the extra square footage. So, Mr. Ing, if the board chose to give it project design approval, because that's what they're here asking, or ultimately that's what they're going to want to ask, do we have to comment on that extra square footage? How does that work with it?
So there's 2 modifications here. There's the accessory space in excess of 500 square feet, and also accessory space in the front yard. So those are the 2 modifications before you today. And for this 2 staff hearings officer, you will need to comment on the aesthetic appropriateness of those 2 items.
Okay. So in essence, we're not really in a position to give it project design approval today because they still have to go to the staff hearing officer. But if they do, and they'd like to get approval, then they're going to need some positive comments from us about those 2 items, correct?
That is correct.
And then you've talked about kind of a natural look in terms of colors, but you haven't assembled a color board yet, or any idea of colors?
No, but just kind
Just
of
what's in the
earth
photographs?
tone.
Okay. And then, let's see. So you answered the question on the FAR. On the previous design, I recall, and I didn't look at it today, well, I guess it was there. Let me borrow that for a second. On the previous design, you were going to put a trellis in front of this porch here, so that's gone away?
We moved it because
Okay, so it's over there.
it's not needed. It's too much trellis now that we want. Instead of this being the breakfast area with the mountain view, we just moved it over a little bit, and it's also protected by the
Okay.
garage.
And then, Mr. Ing, on the horse trailer parking, is there any restrictions as long as they're not parking it in the setback? Is there any zoning restrictions?
Horse trailers, as long as they're movable on their own. Otherwise, it's fine if they're movable on their own, they're drivable. If they're just kind of detached, like trailers or carts that need to be hitched onto another vehicle, those need to be kept in an enclosed space.
So if they're not mobilized themselves, then as a trailer, they have to be in an enclosed space, and so does zoning define that, or do we define that?
No, zoning,
Does that mean a fence, or what does that mean?
an enclosed space, well, like a garage, it has to be enclosed on all 4 sides.
Oh, so it has to be in a building of
In
some
a
sort?
garage.
Like a garage?
Yes.
I know.
Just a trailer?
Just a horse trailer, correct?
No.
If it's not able to move on its own, like if you're
If it's a horse trailer, it
RV
has to
that
be
can drive.
hitched to
Yeah.
a truck or a whatever.
Like kind of like a boat trailer. You can't have a boat trailer on your
Yeah,
property
correct. So you
either.
can't have a boat
Okay,
trailer.
so it has to be in a structure.
Correct.
Well, we actually have enough room because we've planned for a UTV in this. This is actually a door so that they can get their vehicle that transports the hay down to the pasture area. We have enough room to store that there if we need
Okay.
to.
I mean, because the reason I'm asking from a zoning standpoint, I was wondering whether our board is obligated to look at having to hide the trailer or whatever. And basically what you're saying is, no, it has to be in a building, so ultimately you're going to have to come back showing us where it's parked in a building. Okay. And then on the tack room, a question to David, and I may have asked this the last time because I've done a property where we've done this kind of barn, and it's got a metal roof and it's got metal siding, et cetera. Under the Santa Barbara Municipal Code, we're not, basically metallic structures aren't allowed in the city of Santa Barbara, with the exception of standing seam roofs, as I understand it. So we, even though we might decide what colors to approve this thing, are we hamstrung by anything in the code that says they couldn't have a metal structure?
They can have a metal structure, but ultimately it has to be of a finish that's not shiny or reflective. So
Okay.
this board will have purview over that.
Okay, so if we ultimately review this and decide that this proposed tack roof is acceptable, then it's our obligation to make sure we steer the applicant into a color that's not reflective, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And does that go with, let me go back to the site plan. Does that go back to these other structures? There we go. These structures down here in the hay structure?
Yeah, all of those structures.
Okay. So do you have a section or a drawing of what this thing looks like?
And we don't want anything shiny either.
No, I
So
understand.
matte
I'm
finish,
just trying to figure out what it looks
matte
like.
standing seam metal and matte finish on the vertical walls. And
There's a storage unit off Patterson that's kind of tan and has a green roof, if you've ever seen it. And that's the kind of prefab finishes that they put on, and they're not shiny.
looking for the side sections. We drew the side sections through here.
So those are the ones further down.
That's
correct?
further down. There they are.
So it's this one. So the roof is sloping away from the street. Okay.
And then this is where I was telling you there's a drop off to the arena.
Right. And so then you indicated there might be some wall element down this backside?
Yeah, it's right there. So it doesn't go, it's just so that the wind doesn't whip
Okay, so
through
is
there.
it a
It's gonna
fence
close.
or a wood or what is it?
It's probably metal as well.
So this component would be metal. Okay.
Could it be wood? I think it's metal, those things.
Well,
Okay.
yeah, it
It's
can be
gonna-
anything, but
but
we're
but-
doing the
Okay.
prefab, it's
Okay.
Yeah.
what they do.
All right. I think that answers most of my questions. Any other questions? Okay, let's go to comments. So just as you proceed with your comments, this project ultimately is going to need or would like to need project design approval, but at the moment it still has to get 2 modifications. So you can probably do one of at least 2 actions today. One is to do comments and have them return to the board for any additional changes or other studies. Or you could, in fact, if you're satisfied with what's being presented, make comments to the 2 items that Mr. Ng pointed out for the modifications in such a fashion that the board would be comfortable to have the applicant proceed to the staff hearing officer. So it's kind of one of those issues where it's it's not ready to go to the staff hearing officer and we need more information, or it is ready to go to the staff hearing officer, but obviously if they do, then they're going to want positive comments because they'd like to get the modifications approved. Okay? So comments.
Okay, I'll start. I want to thank you for having, moved everything. I know that was a big deal to have to redesign so much, and you did a really good job. I could definitely give positive comments to move this forward to the staff hearing officer. I'm really appreciative of the color choices that you're making to keep everything earth tone and the use of stone, to keep that rustic feel. I have no problem with the extra square footage in the tap room or the gym.
Thanks, Denise.
Other comments?
I will follow up on my colleague, and I agree with her. I could support this project.
Other comments?
So I guess I would like to see a sample of the metal siding and the color. We've alluded to it, but we haven't really seen the color. But I think it's an improvement, and I think it goes in the right direction.
Other comments?
Yes. I agree. I think that it's a really nice relationship between what you have now with the garage and the gym and the house and making a courtyard feel. So, nice.
I'll agree, and we appreciate that you have gone out of the way to be a good neighbor.
Oh, and one other thing is about we have to comment on the FAR, and it is a large lot, it is a guideline, and they're accessory buildings mostly, for some of them are open. So it's not exactly a rote FAR.
Okay. Other comments?
Can I ask another question?
Yeah, go, sure.
Is this a parking area?
It's just for the truck to back up and drop off the hay. Because it's a big truck.
Comes in this way.
Comes in here and backs into there, and then comes out and backs out. And we already know that it works because the moving truck is the same size and it backed out of the driveway. So.
But the driveway is
Not through.
Not
no. Before we were thinking about doing that, but it's so much cost to continue this up and have 2 curb cuts, and we didn't need to do it. It's just going to save a ton of money by not having to do that, and it's more hardscape too. More impact on the street as well.
back in, back out.
I have one other scale question. So what is this?
There's that back of
16.
So this is 8 feet.
at the high side. Yeah.
Is there, or at the moment, or do you propose any land? I mean, if you come right here and you look down, you're going to look all the way over the top of every one of those. There's no landscape. Is there any trees or landscaping?
Yeah, a lot. We just didn't want to move forward.
You don't have a landscape?
No, but we have talked to Margie Grace, and we're going to hire her. We're ready to hire her on, and there's going to be a lot of landscaping because it's really important to integrate the. That's why I brought the kind of idea images, because I wanted you to see how we don't want this to look like a big dirt area. We want it to look like an estate.
Us with a landscape, not with a verbal.
We're going to convince you with the landscaping.
Because I'm looking at it just to.
Their comments? Okay. My comments are, yes, I do appreciate the fact that you've reworked the plan so that I think it does what it needs to do to fit within the neighborhood, given the context that this is a horse neighborhood, whether there are horses there or not. These sites are available to horses. So the only concern I have right now is the hay storage barn. Only because if you do it from the public right-of-way in terms of what you view, and Joe is correct, you stand here, right now you can see all the way down. You can see a little glimpse of the house if you stand in a certain way or drive your car in a certain way. But I'm more concerned about the fact that this is so close. So I think what I'm going to be interested in seeing is how you're going to treat landscaping in here to screen, preferably, this hay barn. from the gate, because that's the place you can actually look into this site. So that I'd be concerned about, certainly the color and finish of the hay barn roof, but because it's sloping the other way, maybe has less of a concern. So I think that'll be important. And then certainly the colors for the tack room. And then certainly addressing, hopefully you can figure out how to address the parking of the horse trailer so that goes away. And then right now there's an existing gate, et cetera, and I think you shared with us last time, that's pretty much all going to remain in place, correct?
Yeah, and it didn't get a permit, and we have to get a permit for it now, but staff can support the.
Okay. So is that a permit or a modification, David?
That's an administrative exception.
Administrative exception, okay. And then the other thing that we'll be interested in is certainly looking at any area lighting that happens, particularly because these are horses and they have things that don't have night and day separations. If they need to be paid attention to, they've got to go out and take care of them. So where lights are is probably fairly important. Okay, other comments? Okay, if there are no other comments, then the chair would entertain a motion. Again, I'm assuming the applicant is looking for positive comments to the two modification requests. One for the fact that the building is in setback, and the other is for the size, the additional square footage.
Actually, it's not the setback. It's just accessory building located
Accessory
in the front
located
yard.
in the front yard. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, in the
Not
front
the
yard.
setback.
Okay. So is anyone ready to make a motion?
I'll make a motion. So the board would like to give, has positive comments for the project, and would like to, can support the two modifications. The first being the size of the tack room and the extra square footage for the tack room, and the second for the for having the accessory building in the front yard setback.
Front yard.
Front yard.
Yeah.
Okay.
And Ms. Pierce, I just want to clarify as well, the extra square footage is not only in that tack room, it's also
Also in the
garage, the accessory building in the
okay.
garage.
So also support the additional square footage in the accessory building. We would like, do you want, I'm going to list a few comments of what we'd like to
See when
make
they
sure
return.
that we see.
And you might indicate whether or not it's returning to the full board or to the city council.
Okay. That's a good question. So what we would like to see is to have all the metal finishes for the tack room, the hay storage, not to have reflective material, matte finish. We would like to see a lighting plan and a landscape plan. Also curious to see the screening for the covered hay storage area. So,
That's your motion?
yep.
Okay. Do I have a set? Oops.
I didn't say whether the full board or
Yes.
consent.
we Need to decide that.
I guess let's just say the consent, see how that goes.
Okay, the motion is to go to consent for project design approval.
I second it.
There's a second to the motion. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, the chair will call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Nay? The only reason I'm voting no is I think it should come back to the full board. That's my vote. Any abstentions? Okay, motion's passed. We can go to consent.
Thank you all.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
Sorry I was late.
They must do it, so it's-
Okay.
One of those sets of photos.
Divvy it up with David over there. See what he does. Okay, we're going to go to item number 5, 1626 Alston Road.
David,
This is here for a second concept review. It's here for comments only. Project requires an environmental assessment. Project was last reviewed on October 5th, 2015. And I'm going to ask Mr. Ring a question before we proceed further.
It's David.
Mr. Ring, before we proceed, a question. This description that's now here, should I read that into the record? Because that's completely revised. Is that a complete revision to the?
Yes, because this is a completely revised project, I would suggest reading the description, and Mr. Miller can follow with the comments from last.
Right. So this is a revised project description, so I'm going to read that into the record. This is a revised project description for a new 3,882 square foot, two-story, single-family residence with a 660 square foot attached garage for 3 cars. The project includes a 1,181 gross square foot covered patio, 1,183 gross square feet of terraces, a covered entry porch, new driveway and driveway gate, walkways, a built-in hot tub, fountains, and new landscaping. It also proposes a 609 square foot cut and fill of grading, of which 284 cubic yards will occur outside of the building footprint, and 214 cubic yards will be exported off the site. The proposed total of 4,542 square feet on a 1.1 acre vacant lot in the Hillside Design District is 90% of the guideline maximum floor to lot area ratio. The revised project has been reoriented on the site and is 390 square feet and 9% FAR reduction from the last proposal. A previously requested zoning modification for an oversized garage is no longer pursued. So this is here for a second concept review. It's for comments only. Project still requires an environmental assessment. Project was last reviewed on October 5th, 2015. If you could introduce yourselves, please.
Jose Luis Esparza, architect.
Roy Greenwell, project manager.
Welcome. If you could share with us. Oh, wait a minute. Before you do that, let's go to our motion from last time. Sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Number 1, the board recommends an alternate design to be consistent with the stated architectural style, which I think you've done. The plate heights specifically on the second floor are not to exceed 8 feet in height. Number 3, the site and floor plan must be consistent with the Planning Commission requirements. The footprint needs a parallel to the contour lines, to be parallel to the contour lines. Number 4, provide a site survey prior to subsequent to the existing grading, including all existing trees. Number 5, provide sections through the site at an 1/8-inch scale to include elevations of adjoining homes bordering the neighborhood. Number 6, provide a delineated roof plan. Number 7, study the windows fenestrations to be consistent with the architectural style. Number 8, provide a preliminary landscape plan. Action carried by Woolry, seconded by Motisha. Motion was carried unanimously.
Okay, thank you. So if you could share with us how you address those comments, please.
Let me start by just saying a couple of things regarding some of the comments that were received by the neighbors. The home that we're here to present sits on a 1.1 acre lot, and we've got 280 feet setback from the street to the front of the building. it only directly impacts 4 other homes, which are in the adjacent properties. Shares approximately 500 linear feet of property line with this property. Otherwise, it almost completely secluded, and these homes are the Patrick and Sarah Manani, which are this property owner, Bob and Susan Shand, 612 Alston. And their comments were that our roof deck, which sits here, they felt would be a noisy party place with a fireplace on the deck, and they had that there are 2-story and 1-story homes within elements throughout the eucalyptus hill. They objected to having a 2-story element, and we brought some documentation of the neighborhood to show that there are homes in the neighborhood with 2-story elements.
As well as 2 stories.
As well, yes, as well as 2 stories. This is our project, 612 Alston. Here's the Shands, the Irelands, McCormick's, and the Manani. Some of the 2-story homes are located on this street. This is all 2-story except for one house. And you know, these are 2 stories. 2 stories. And Augusta Lane, these are all 2 stories, except for one house, which we believe was this house that was only 1 story.
I've been put it on, I'll pass it down.
Okay. There's also examples of Mediterranean architecture in the neighborhood, which the photos show. Also, 2 stories or 1 story with 2-story elements. Our new proposal is for a 1 story with a 2-story element over the garage. The McCormick's, which are our neighbor on Rometto, we met with them at their home and presented them with plans which we're presenting today, and landscape plans. The conclusion that there is little or no impact to their lifestyle or property. His only concern was that we might cut down trees, which we assured him it wouldn't happen, and that we would actually be adding trees along the shared property line, adjacent to the property. Mr. Ireland, who is our neighbor down here on Alston, we also met with him and in his home and reviewed the plans with him and the landscape plan. And the conclusion with Mr. Ryan was that there was little or no impact to his privacy or his property. The last time we were here, we were told to redesign the home, which we have done, so that it would fit into the neighborhood, both in size and in style. What we have done is we've redesigned it to be a 1 story with this stepping down with the grade also reducing the height where the view corridor is, and also following the terrain to minimize the impact to the neighbors. We believe we've kept within the height corridor. It was suggested to make the house smaller, which we have done. We went from 99% FAR to 90% FAR. And we have lowered the house dramatically, with the only two-story element being over the garage, which we've got a study with a small terrace over this bedroom, looking at the view. One of the things that was talked about at the last meeting was to put up story poles, and we're working on having that available to the board for the next meeting, prior to the next meeting. The Shans, and/or their contract have written to the board that the home is a two-story home and doesn't fit into the neighborhood. As we have seen from the photos and from looking at the neighborhood, there are plenty of two-story homes and elements. We have brought some photos around, and all of the photos are approximately 2 blocks away from in the neighborhood of 2 blocks away. Regarding a letter that was sent in by Mrs. Van Winkels, which is located
808.
at 808 Austin Lane.
Yes.
Up here, which her home is a 2-story home, but she was concerned with the view down over the site. And we met with her at her residence and reviewed the plans and landscape. And to her surprise, there's zero or no impact to her view. All the information that was provided to her prior to the meeting was provided by the Shans, and thus mute. In closing, each and every neighbor we met with volunteered. We volunteered that when and if they were having a special occasion, we would do our best to mitigate and construction noise for their event. Each of the neighbors were left not only plan sets but also our personal numbers to be able to in touch with us if necessary during the construction. So let's review the landscape plan. So here are the trees along the neighbor that was concerned with us taking down trees. These are some of the existing trees that are going to remain. They're going to be in this area, the eucalyptus. There's no trees in this area right now, and we're going to be planting these trees. The survey that was requested. This is the survey that was requested. So as you can see, we've got he plotted a building pad area from when this lot was created. So we're within that area, and he's also shown where the view easement is, which this is the line. So the site goes down quite drastically. their house is at approximately 289. That's grade outside of their home. We can get the information of finished floor, but the grade outside their home is 289, and our finished floor, main finished floor, is 270. So they're considerably higher than we are. This is our roof plan. So we've got, this is our two-story element. This is a clear story and a clear story. And this is the deck that is being mentioned in the letters. These are the elevations. And we've got, this is the front, or north-facing elevation. And we're going with a Mediterranean architecture style with a heavy timber trellis at the front courtyards, with a 5-foot privacy wall there, which is typical of some of the Mediterranean style designs. Back elevations, you can see it's terracing down. This is the deck that is mentioned in the letters. And we can go back to the site plan. One of the comments was to have this parallel to the contour lines, and I think we've done as close of a job as possible in achieving that with the terraces going down the hill, which are shown in the landscape plan. The trees that are being removed are a couple of pittosporums at the front of the driveway. The only significant tree that we're trying to figure out how we can save it is this pepper tree, the 12-inch pepper tree. But if we do remove it, there's plenty of landscape area to mitigate its removal. Would you like to add anything?
No, you did you covered it unless we've got questions.
Thank you. Okay, before we come back for questions to the board, is there anyone in the audience wishing to speak to this project?
Yeah, I do.
Okay, then you need to step forward, please, and bring up a yellow. Okay. Good step. Come up, please, and sit in this chair. Microphone on. So Patrick Manini?
It's actually Mayani.
Mayani, excuse me. Okay. You have 2 minutes to address the board, please.
Speak into the microphone.
And speak into the microphone.
Okay.
This is all being recorded.
Okay, I'm Patrick Mayani. Our home is located at 626, actually 265 Rometto Road, which is adjacent to 626 Alston. As I said, the owners and the representatives have been in touch with us from the beginning of this proposed project and have kept us in the loop by submitting all updated plans and information regarding this project. We believe that we would be the most impacted by this development as our property, because we share approximately about 500 feet of property line along the driveway there going down. From the plans we have reviewed, we believe this project will not only fit into our neighborhood, but will be a welcome addition. That's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you. And if we could have the aerial photograph before you step aside, sir. So if you just point on this, where is your house? This is the site. That's Alston Road. So where are you? This is east.
Yes, that's us here, right here, yeah.
Okay. So it's that house?
Yes.
Okay. Because it says 626 on this, on your signage, so that's... Okay, gotcha.
No, we're 265. I'm sorry, Road.
Okay, gotcha. All right. Okay, thank you. Okay, Mr. Ng, were there any other communications other than the letters we received? Just
No,
before the meeting?
only the letters that have been
Okay.
presented to you.
We had 9 letters, all indicate opposition to the project. Has everyone had a chance to read them, look at them?
I
Yes.
thought there was only 4 letters.
We have 9 letters that were submitted as of 3 o'clock this afternoon.
We didn't.
If you want copies, you can talk to staff and get those, okay? I'll try to summarize them. I'm not going to read all 9 of them. Essentially, all of them do object to the project. Several of them object to the fact that it's a 2-story project. There's several that object to the deck and the fact that it's going to have a wood-burning fireplace. Let's see. Some are concerned about the circumventing of the dark sky environment. Several of them ask for story poles. There's still concern about the ravine may cause slippage and erosion. There's one that's concerned about a earthquake fault through the site or near the site. Let's see. I think those are the only things I spotted that were a little bit different in each letter. But all of the letters submitted of those 9 are all objecting to the project. I did have a question. There is a communication we received, or staff received, excuse me, via email on Friday at 5:55 p.m., if I'm reading this correct, from Barbara Arlen. She's objecting to the project, but I thought you indicated that you had talked to her.
I spoke with Mr. Ireland at length.
Okay, and
his
was that
daughter.
before Friday night?
Yeah, it was. It was on Saturday, as a matter of fact. I spoke with him on, no, I spoke to him on, I think I spoke to him on Saturday.
It's on Saturday. So we got this on Friday
Okay, I
night,
spoke
and
to
you
him on
spoke to him on
Saturday,
Saturday. Okay. All right.
Saturday at 3 o'clock.
Okay. Anybody else everybody's satisfied reading the letters? Okay. Any other communication, Mr. Rain?
No other communications.
All right. Before we go to questions of the board, I see Mr. Lamone's here. Do you need to conform us to anything before we start our discussion? Okay.
Well, may I say something?
Yes.
Thank you. I haven't read, we only knew about these 4 letters, and in each and every one of them, we've, looked at it and changed it, 100%. If it wasn't 100%, it was Ivory Snow 99 and 44 100% from the last time we were here. And there is no 2 stories, although there is a 2-story element. There are no wood-burning fireplaces, and other than the 4 neighbors that were pointed out and that we made note of here, this property cannot be seen by anybody.
Well, that's a matter of a subjective matter, and it's still to the boards to make that decision.
No, I understand that, but I wanted to be,
Thank you for the information.
clear.
Okay, let's go to the board for questions. Who has questions, please? Yes, please.
Well, when you were reading about what we had asked of them the last time,
Yes.
what I remember you saying or reading.
Repeat those?
No,
Okay.
it was that we wanted them to reduce the plates to 8 feet.
Yes.
So both the first and second floor are still 9 feet, or they are
No,
not?
we have to see.
The different style.
Where's the,
Well, the only second floor
We
is
have a
this.
section sheet.
so it's,
On
it
the north
shows-
elevation, it
shows
says
9 feet,
9 feet.
okay? And we requested it to be 8 feet, is your point.
It's 9 feet on the bottom, and
Okay.
the second floor is 9 feet.
Yeah, the way I read this, it says the second floor starts here, and it's 9 feet and 7/16 of an inch to the top plate on the second floor. Okay.
This is the east end of the house
Yes.
towards Montecito. Yep.
Okay.
In front of the driveway, yes.
Other questions?
What is this? What's this element here?
This is the rooftop deck and the master bedroom.
There's no windows, nothing looking north, nothing looking northeast.
Correct, because the hillside just goes up. So we're using it as the back wall.
Tell me on the site plan where this, point at that wall.
Here. So this goes up dramatically, and this is where that view, underneath that view corridor.
Okay, other questions? Yes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. The trees along the driveway, the proposed 2 rows, what are you envisioning there?
I will try to. Right now, it's more of a preliminary plan, but we envision something like the
Olive trees.
picture that you have up here. Roy says it's olive trees, so that it's. This is the photograph above in the middle. That's the feeling that we want there with the olive trees and the low.
So they're not
landscaping.
palm trees then?
No.
No.
Okay,
So
thank
you're
you.
gonna, right now, you drive down, walk down the whole driveway.
Yeah,
Right
right
now, you can drive down and you don't see anything looking west.
Correct.
So you're going to take out everything that's there to your property and redo it, re-landscape it with
No,
new
we're not
trees.
taking, the only things that are going to be taken out are things that are either dead or
in the way.
And the other thing is that the fire department has, and we've already done it, up in here, they've asked us to clean this out. This was all brush. And it's all cleaned now. If anything, we would like to, we will be adding, more landscape and more trees.
And the garage is right here. These are the garages right here.
2 garages
So you
here
can
and 1
get
here.
You can get in and out. You're going to have to back out all the way.
Yeah, just to here. We've got a big
Right,
drive
and if
court.
you come down here and you drive into the garage right here, to get out of it, you have to back all the way out, all the way around here.
Yes.
Have you had that reviewed by transportation?
No, we haven't. Okay.
They will or they have?
Have they commented?
And any comments?
Comments?
Yeah, it's fine.
I mean, you're only looking at 16. You're not even looking at 16. If you have trees, you have landscape around, you're barely looking at 10. That's a half an inch. You're barely looking at 12 feet right there to get out of this garage door right here.
But it's with a radius, so once you start the radius, I mean, we'll definitely review that further, but with the radius, it worked.
Right.
Yes, other questions?
Another question on the site plan, there is a note by, it's like a staff person that says the driveway configuration does not match the one on the proposed landscape plan. And here you show a turnaround as your solution for. Yeah.
That's on sheet 1.
Yes.
Sheet A1.
Our landscaper, we gave our landscaper a little bit extra freedom, and that he came up with this with the slabs, concrete slabs, with the grass strips between them. So that's the one of the main differences there.
So, which?
But it is more. We like to do more of what he has proposed because it's obviously a more artistic approach to it, and he also has the stormwater management in mind.
Other questions?
Because it's permeable paving, I mean, you can, yeah, but, do the other configuration with.
Now, I won't begin to tell you what you had in mind. May I?
No, it's just questions. I want to make sure everybody's getting their
Question.
questions answered.
No, I'll wait.
Okay, other questions? Okay, I have several. Mr. Ng, this still needs an environmental assessment. and I think we talked about this at the last meeting. There was some concern about an earthquake fault, and there's some concern about the drainage further down the canyon. That will be addressed in the environmental assessment? Is that what's going to be looked at?
Yeah, there is an earthquake fault. However, the city, as it relates to single-family homes, we don't place restrictions on that being built. Multifamily, yes, but not a single-family home. Drainage, we'll have to look at that further down the line. This project also requires an archaeology report.
Okay.
So we'll need to look at that before we can grant this final approval, or project design approval.
Thank you. Then we had requested in our last set of comments sections through the site at 1/8" scale. Did you do those?
No, we didn't.
Didn't do that.
Yes.
You did provide a delineated roof plan, and the way I'm reading that, the roof is a tile roof, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And then there was some study window fenestrations, but you've now presented a different design. Then with regards to, I think you cleared that up. I want to go to the second floor element over this garage. So this second floor study and bathroom is not accessible from the main house without going outside and going up that staircase, correct?
Or going through the garage, yes.
But you still have to, even if you go through the garage, you have to go outside to get up to that floor, correct? There's no inside staircase.
Yes, correct.
Okay. So, Mr. Ing or Mr. Lamone, does that kind of configuration constitute a second unit or a granny unit because it's not accessible from inside the house? How does that work?
In this case, we would not allow the full bath. I think there's a shower in there. In this case, we would only allow the vanity and the bath and the toilet.
Okay. So if we're agreeable that that element is okay with an outside staircase, then they'd have to take out the things you just talked about.
Correct.
Unless they had a staircase that's accessible from in the house, then it could remain as it's drawn in terms of bathroom.
Well, it's more of a matter of is it connected to the house in such a way that it can't be made into a separate unit. So
right. That's why I'm asking the question, because it reads like a possible rental unit.
Yes, and we would apply our policies of not allowing certain amenities in that space.
Okay. Let's see.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
may I ask about that? Years ago, and since Jaime is here, maybe you can elaborate, but they used to have something where actually people had to sign that do they still have that?
Yeah. I was just going to mention that if there is some question about that, we would ask for a zoning compliance declaration that also is recorded on the property and makes a commitment that the property owner is aware that they cannot put a second unit kitchen facilities on the property.
There won't be any problem. Okay. So then my other question is A7, your section. What? That's on sheet 7? So I wanted to see is, so this cuts through a trellised terrace, a covered patio. So does that show up on, I'm trying to read these elevations. Do I see that on the elevations or what that looks like? Is that what I'm looking at here?
Correct.
Okay.
So this is the heavy timber trellis.
Okay, so that's coming out away from us.
Correct.
Okay, and then is there a little bit of a retaining wall as it cascades down the
Yes.
mountain? And what's the finish on that? Stucco or rock? Or
Well, we're going to be doing mostly berming up, but it's going to be at such a slope that we would need to still have a railing on it.
Okay. And then do you have a plan of this deck? Did I see that? Maybe I didn't see that.
It's
here.
shown
Okay.
on the roof plan.
Okay. And do you have any feel for what the finished material is going to be yet?
Being that it's Spanish, we'd probably do something, either 12 by 12 impermeable tiles that, red and to simulate terracotta.
Okay. And then,
Go ahead.
and then going back to the site plan where we had you identify the existing trees. Got my sheet that's showing on. What is this tree right here? That's on this property,
on
but
that
what is
property.
that tree?
It's green, evergreen, I don't remember what it is.
Okay, do we have a photograph of that?
Yes, we do.
Okay. And this tree is on your property.
This-
That's
that's
an
eucalyptus.
Yeah, that tree, it may be a problem.
pass
That's
those
a
pictures so we
eucalyptus.
could show them.
But you can see from, when you go on site,
No, that's for, that's on the street.
when you go on
be that
site, you can see that tree has been
What's this guy?
burned, probably by lightning. It's this one right here. Let me see.
No,
That's up on the street.
No,
It's this one right there.
yeah. So we're,
That's the evergreen.
That's this one.
yeah.
Okay.
It looks
Is it an
big-
oak tree?
It looks bigger than this.
Okay.
This tree, I'm not sure if it's
I don't think it's
even
been like.
but all there's burn marks, big burn marks up here.
Okay, and then the elevation differential from that level up here, I'm reading that to be 270. No, 271? It's hard to tell. And then we drop to 227? So there's,
This is a.
No, that's
That's a retaining wall.
that's the distance.
that's this little retaining, there's a bunch of stone here. That's what this is, right?
270.2, and then
So how fast are we dropping there?
and then this is 265. It's
So it's 2, 4, 6, 8, so there's maybe 10 feet?
yeah.
Okay.
It looks like this was graded. I mean, the difference between this finished floor and our top of deck is 9 feet.
But we don't, we asked for some site sections through here, and then we don't have those, okay. And then,
We thought we'd address those with the poles.
pardon?
We will have story poles so we can actually see.
There's a purpose to doing site
Well,
sections.
it's not really, not a site.
That's why we want it. Okay. But I'll get to that in my comments. Okay, I think those got to most of my questions. I may have a few more. Okay.
So I have one more question relating to the survey. I believe at the last review, there was some concern that some grading had been done prior to the permitting, and that's why we asked for the survey of what is existing versus what the original survey said. Can you possibly find the comment we made regarding the grading? Does
yes,
anyone
there
else
was-
remember
there's
that?
There's apparent grading. When I walked over into the site, there's apparent grading. So the reason we asked for the site survey is to tell us what is there now. There's no way to tell us what was there before because it wasn't recorded.
Well,
So does this reflect what's there now?
Yeah, but I can address the grading issue that you brought up the last time. I didn't do it the last time because, I hadn't signed up to do it. But the grading or the appearance of the grading was taking off the burn, it was all from the fire
So
department.
it's what we refer to as scarifying the site.
Yeah, and now a lot of it's back, and then since then, the only thing that has been done on the property, other than by utilities, which had nothing to do with us, they graded where they put in and brought a helicopter in to put in new poles, and then they put in a new sewer line.
Okay.
And that was, not our doing.
But
as well as the only things that we've done to the property is to put the what are those hay things called for the water?
Oh, Scarville?
Scarville, yes, so to hold the water in the right places. That's it.
But essentially, this reflects what's there now.
Yes.
That's what this survey
Yes.
is. So I think that answers your question. Okay. Other questions? Joe?
Fireplace only shows on the elevation. And it's 1 foot away from the building.
Yes.
I mean, you've got a second-story building right here, and it's that close.
Yes.
True? Is it indeed that close?
Where's it on the roof?
It's not on the roof plan. Okay. Another comment. Yes, you did. I mean, I think the house was turned about like this, right, before? It was more this way.
Yeah, it went.
More this way. And so you took the house and you turned it this way.
Yes.
Could you have, question, I'll make it into a question. If you look down here and you're looking at the house sideways or on an angle, and you just took the house and just turned it and kept the same house, there would be a lot you could, can't put it into a comment. What? That element right there could be turned. And I'm not telling you how to design the building, but
Didn't it come, well, I think what we were trying to do, and correct me if I'm wrong, is we were trying to make sure that we were out of that view corridor.
yeah, well, I mean, still, you're going to have to do something with that there. With the fireplaces, there's two fireplaces that come up right there.
Yes.
So something's going to happen with that second-story unit right there, and that's what we're addressing. We're addressing the aesthetic of what's. I mean, you got a two-story unit right there. That's the only place that's two-story, except for the terrace over here, and you're going to come back with something that's going to be different because it's not going to go through the. It's not going to pass.
Why is that?
It's got a fireplace that's a foot away from a building that doesn't go anywhere.
Okay.
That has to get correct. Comments?
Okay, I have some comments. I appreciate the direction you're going to, but I think your understanding and a feeling for Spanish colonial architecture needs a lot of work. I think the house, I was just looking at it, it's just a mishmash of different things. And I'll follow with Joe. I think your site location of the house is really, really awkward. And the fact that this is pinched, I think you need to completely relook at how you locate the house. I can't accept the fact that you have two garages separated. That's really strange. And it's really not consistent with this style of architecture. There's a lot of keys and elements of design in Spanish colonial or Andalusian architecture. And, like, if you look at your elevation, well, let's go here. Like the floor plan is just it's very complicated. And I think one of the beauties of this kind of style of architecture is simplicity. The fact that you have a foyer loggia, these are split. Usually it comes in, there should be a very simple, it's just to me, just squares, not a lot of, it's just too complicated. I'll let my other fellow architects comment on that. Yes, this is, and I know Fred will follow up, like this is not even, there's a certain kind of pattern that works. Like there's, the proportions, the proportions aren't working. In fact, I was looking at two photographs that you had. This is I think this is the old original house that was there. And there's a sense of elegance and simplicity about these homes that you really need to try to achieve. And I think this has got too much stuff introduced. This column capital, I don't know what that is. It looks like a flower pot put on, and it just doesn't say anything other than there's a column there, but it doesn't tell me, it tells me you haven't put a lot of thought in what kind of a column you're actually calling out. And also, columns like this tend to be Italian, not Spanish colonial, so you're kind of introducing kind of a conflict there. The other thing I was thinking as well is these are great architects to research: Bertram Goodhue, Wallace Neff, G.W. Smith, George Osborne Craig. These are great architects that really excel in Spanish colonial architecture. I really think you need to study these architects. And I also want you to look at the sketches, like on I don't know what it is about the architects of the 20s, but you just look at the flow and the balance, how everything kind of has a flow to it, all of them. The proportions of the windows, the distance between the eaves, how the arches meld in with it. It's just a very pleasant flow, and that's kind of what's missing here. And I think that's really what needs to be approached in this particular house. And those are my comments.
Other comments?
Yeah,
Yes.
I agree with my colleague to my right here. I think in particular the part that I find rather jolting is on the north elevation, the giant piece in the middle, the big arch, and then on top of that, the 3 little arch windows that look like they're touching the eaves up on the top here. And I'm not sure what this is underneath it either. It seems like an element that came out of a modern piece of architecture that got put on here. And then also the fenestration and the differences in all the different fenestration I find a bit jarring. I think that we mentioned that the time before. There's the Palladian style along with the different lights and the other style. And it's a little bit much going on, actually, in my opinion. I also think that the deck over the garage is entirely too big.
Other comments? Okay, I'm going to agree with my colleagues to my left. If this proceeds further, it's going to need a lot of work. You need to get some design assistance because none of these window fenestrations, the trellis, none of it works. It's all very awkward. You can't take pieces of Mediterranean architecture, and it doesn't have to be a true Andalusian interpretation of a George Washington Smith, et cetera. If you want it to be Mediterranean does introduce some elements of Italianate architecture in terms of columns, et cetera, but these aren't it. So this needs a lot of work before it goes there. But before I even get into that, let me go back to the site plan. And I, like Joe, walked down to the site, and I walked through the site, and I'm not going to support any roof deck over here. That looks right into these folks' yard and house. That's just not appropriate. This house is shoved too close. Given the amount of acreage you have, this house is shoved too close to this site. And so I can't support any kind of roof deck element up here. Okay. I think I agree with my colleagues that having the garages split on both sides is inappropriate. The scale of the front of this house is not there yet. We asked you to do site sections through the site. There's a reason we asked for that, because then we can talk to it. We're not going to wave our arms out in the field at story poles. And if we do story poles, they're to our criteria for story poles. And if you read the guidelines, there's 3 different sets of criteria. And I would hope that my colleagues would look at criteria number 3 if we do require story poles. We ask that any second floors be at 8-foot plate heights. That isn't what occurred here, so that has to occur. I'm not going to support anything that moves that second floor any higher. I think Joe is correct. The fireplaces have to be articulated correctly, and they're really not at this point. There's just a lot of design work that's going to have to be done here, and so I'm sharing with you that you need to get some design help in terms of presentation that's made to this board, et cetera. And the only reason I'm sharing that with you is if you don't, you're going to be here a whole lot of meetings. So if you really want to get this thing built and want to get this board to approve it, you're going to need some design assistance, and we don't see it. That's, I think, the frustration you're hearing on many of our parts. So you can either make this very long, and we'll do it bit by bit for every window and every piece of it, or you get some assistance in here and get us this site and your project really deserves a good piece of architecture, and you need some help to get there. And what you keep presenting to us isn't going to get you there fast. It's going to be really slow. So it's up to you. You either spend the money getting a decent set of architecture here, or you're going to spend a whole lot of time coming back every couple of weeks as we go through this one piece at a time. I would assume my colleagues agree with me. So if you're going to propose this style of architecture, it needs to be done correctly. You notice that the people that are objecting to this are complaining because it isn't ranch style, it isn't low slung, et cetera. And I think I shared with you at your first visit that you can do Mediterranean-style architecture or even Spanish-style, Andalusian-style architecture, but if you observe that architecture, it can be done in such a way that could be compatible with the other homes in the neighborhood. As to the issue of the second floor, if one studies how these neighborhoods were put together, this group over here was done as a tract. Those are all tract houses. They were all built about basically at the same time on a set of footprints, because they were all done, the typical where they just do the front elevation and the sides of the house are pretty simple. So that was built way differently than the other piece of this neighborhood. All these other properties were developed at different time frames. So part of our challenge here is to approve a residential property that can be woven into the fabric of the neighborhood in terms of its materials, its scale. Scale is really important. It's how scale relates to the human person. So one of the things we urge people to do, particularly in a complicated design like this, is show us the scale of people on these drawings. Show a person so we can see how that relates to in terms of scale. Bulk has to do with exactly how we're looking at the bulk of this second floor element. That's why we're encouraging you to drop that plate height down to 8 feet. If you look at some of the best Andalusian architecture, George Washington Smith and some of the names, Brian, that you pointed out, some of those plate heights are down at 7 feet or 7'6", where they really lowered that element so that that second floor, that bulk, sits into the ground. Because remember, if you look at Andalusian architecture in Spain, it's of the earth because it's built of adobe, it's built of bricks that were taken from the earth, and they didn't have a lot of money to go up with big, high buildings. So they did what they had to do. They also had small people, but it really has to do with the feel that we all admire about Santa Barbara's architecture, and we don't see it here. So I think you really need to get some help to get here. Otherwise, you're going to be through here my fear is you're going to be back here over and over and over again until we get what this board needs to see. Somebody may disagree with my comments, but I think that's where we are. That's what we're hearing. Okay. So we're here for comments only because it still requires an environmental assessment for the project. So the chair would entertain some motion with some comments to give the applicant some guidance of where to go next.
I'll try to make a motion. We'd like to move to continue the project to the full board with the following comments. We feel that the style of the architecture is appropriate for the neighborhood. However, we'd like the client to study and reevaluate, revisit the design of the house, be a little more sensitive to the style in terms of the consistency and coherence of the different elements of windows, columns, study the placement of the fireplaces, that they are more inconsistent with the location of adjacent roofs. The board cannot support having the garage in two different locations in the same house. The board will not support a roof deck. And the board, I'd like to put in the record that architects Bertram Goodhue, Wallace Neff, G.W. Smith, or George Osborne Craig to be researched by the architect to study this particular style of architecture to help them and support them in doing a beautiful design for the home. We would like to see site sections. And I think those are my comments.
Okay, that's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Okay. Is there any-
Does the maker of the motion want to include studying the actual footprint layout, some different
On the site?
to work with the site better, the topography and just the constrictions that it now has
Placement of the house on the site.
I'm not sure how to put that. The board would like to see this architect study how the building footprint. I'm not sure what you're actually saying.
Well, may I
yeah,
suggest
please.
some wording? That the applicant revisit the footprint of the house in relationship to the contours, in relationship to its adjacency to the north property at whatever that address is.
It's 612 Alston Road.
612 Alston Road, and that they also study the placement and orientation of the garage elements, because the board feels that in reality, the drive approach to those garages will not work.
I
support that
comment. Yes.
Is that okay to the?
Yes, it's okay with the seconder. Yep.
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
under comments, have some reservations. I mean, how can we say the style is appropriate because it's going to be redesigned, basically?
Well,
We'll see it then. Basically, I think what the board is saying, that contrary to some of the comments from the letters opposing the project, who want to see it a ranch-style board and bat house, I think what the motion is saying, we're amenable to a Mediterranean or Spanish-style architecture, but it isn't quite there yet.
And so by saying the style is appropriate, are we saying if the new style has the garage with the
does
second
all the other
story,
things,
are we
it might
saying
work.
that? We're saying it might work.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have to convince us. Yes.
Do you feel like you need to reiterate the plate height on the second story, or are we just assuming?
I don't think so.
element.
It's a different style house. I'd just like to have you really explore some design elements and make it work and flow. I mean, plate height will be a critical component, but I don't know if I want to specify it now.
Yeah.
We asked for that before and it wasn't applied to.
So,
That was on a different plan, though.
yeah.
One other thing is on the study that showed the second stories and the 2 stories in the neighborhood, does the board, would we like to see the regular traditional 20 closest homes study? Because that's not it.
May I comment on that?
Go ahead.
I think that the fact that I think the applicant was correct that this house is not going to be visible from the street. It's just really not. It's going to be a quick glimpse down the driveway, but nobody's going to see this house. I don't think the 20 closest homes is that necessary. And I think that the 2 second-story element is different than what they first proposed. You know, I mean, it's not a big element on this particular house.
We don't
I mean, it might
quite
change,
know,
but it might change in the next iteration.
Well, I
but-
just would like to make sure that if it does have a second-story element, for me, I would like to see the traditional study of the immediate homes in the neighborhood.
But that's typically done for the FARs.
Yeah.
That 20 closest
not-
homes is for
Right,
FARs, not
that
second floors.
too.
Second
I don't
floors.
think we should tie their
I don't know
hands
if
on
that'll
it.
work in this
Okay,
device.
all right,
That's not in the motion.
okay.
And please be aware, there are very, very rare instances where sites can't be seen. Now, Ms. Wollery said she's correct, it can't be seen from the road, but all of these homes, that's why this review board is here. All of these homes can be seen from some area in the city. This site can be seen from the lower part of the canyon, so we're concerned about what will be seen. It can be seen from the adjoining hills. That's why they have a board to review. That's why you have to come to us. That's why it's called the Hillside Design District, et cetera. So all homes are visible in some fashion. The issue for some of the folks that may be objecting to the site, or in terms of views, is a lot of people are under the impression that their individual view of a property through a specific window or a door opening in their home comes under the purview of our determinations here. That isn't the case. The city attorney has advised us that we can't guarantee private views from private points and private windows, but we do have to pay attention to the general neighborhood view corridors and to the general view of how this house will be seen from other points. So, having been out and walked to the site, I would urge all of you to go out and walk and look at the site and walk it so that you understand what it means when we look at that eucalyptus tree or even the other tree that is on the other property that actually hangs over and at least on this current plan shows it hanging into the footprint of this house here in this corner. And obviously one of the concerns I'm going to have down the road if this element stays is what will have to be done to that tree in order to fit this in the house or fit that house under the tree. So those are the kinds of things we're going to be looking at. Okay, there is a motion on the floor. We've had comments. Does everyone understand the motion? Do we need it reread?
No, I don't think so.
No? Okay. Hearing no further discussion, the chair will call for the vote. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? So carried. Okay, we'll see you back here.
Good luck.
Ready.
Have fun.
Thank you.
Okay.
David, do you need these photos or?
Okay, is there any other business before today's board? Seeing no other business, the chair will close Monday, March 21st, 2016, Singles Family Design Board.